What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Alright, so we are going to continue our coverage over the Evolutionary War, and now we pick up with the West Avengers Annual 3, the B-list Avengers team, if I may say. Now, when it comes to the Evolutionary War, it's all about one particular character, and that would be the High Evolutionary. So when it comes to the High Evolutionary, his main goal is to advance the human race into god-like beings. Let me explain. So when it came to the High Evolutionary, he was able to create a counter Earth on the other side of the sun, except that Earth was taken by the Beyonders. Now when it came to the High Evolutionary, he went out of his way to confront the Beyonders to only learn that they're god-like beings, and after meeting them, he believed that he has the ability to advance the human race into that level of power, into god-like beings. And so the entire point of the Evolutionary War is him doing different things that could possibly help evolve the human race. And when it comes to the West Coast Avengers, this is now him beginning a new plan that could possibly work. Now we kind of find out his new plan is to actually use some kind of genetic bomb. Now for him to be able to pull this off, he's missing one component, and that would be vibranium. And we already know where this story is most likely going to go. Over to Wakanda. Now, before we dive into that right there, I do want to mention that when it comes to the High Evolutionary, he does have different groups he uses as a way to help him achieve his different goals. So for example, we have met the Purifiers, the Gatherers, and also the Eliminators. But now we're being introduced to another team, and that will be the Technicians. Now, right off the bat, you already know what they are used for as a way to build different kinds of devices that could possibly help the High Evolutionary reach his goals. And currently, the Technicians are helping him build this new genetic bomb that should supposedly advance the human race. But like I said earlier, they need vibranium. And so you do have the Gatherers about to leave to go attack Wakanda to collect that resource. But before we see that happen, we do see one of the Technicians who is going to be very important for this video put a note inside one of the Gatherers, hoping that maybe an Avenger could find it and possibly save him. He is trying to escape. Now, unfortunately for the Gatherers, they don't get that far when it comes to attacking Wakanda, because as soon as they get to the borders, well, they were confronted by Black Panther and a few members of his private guard or possibly part of the army. Either way, it does not matter, because you do have Black Panther being able to shut down the Gatherers' advances. Now, you do have Black Panther grab one of the members of the Gatherers, and when he does that, he finds the note we saw earlier when it came to that one Technician who put that note inside the armor of this guy. And we kind of find out that his name is William Foster. Now I'll explain more about him later on, but in the note, he is begging for help, and he says, listen, you have to help me and come to this location right here on the map, but you need to contact one person who could most likely help me, and that would be Dr. Henry Pym, aka Hank Pym. And so you have Black Panther say, you know what? Let me go ahead and call up the Avengers. Now, it's not the main team Avengers. Like I said earlier, it is the West Coast Avengers. And so when they do arrive, we are introduced to some members of the team. It will be Wonder Man, Vision, Scarlet Witch, and also Hawkeye. Now, when it comes to Black Panther, he's wondering, hey, where's Hank Pym? But also, where's your wife, Hawkeye? Because he was married to Mockingbird around this time. And when it came to the West Coast Avengers, they had some issues of their own. Hank Pym is no longer on the team. And also Mockingbird, Tigra, and also Moon Knight have also left the team. And so these are the only few people who could come over to Wakanda to possibly help Black Panther out. Now, when they do arrive, he does show them the letter that came from Dr. Dr. Foster. Now, Scarlet Witch, she knows who he is, and she tells us that he was a lab assistant to Hank Pym, who was able to duplicate, had a hard time saying that, the growth powers that Hank Pym had, and became to Black Goliath. Now, after becoming Black Goliath, he was able to be a hero for a short period of time until he ran into Atom Smasher, who gave him deadly radiation. He got cancer. Now, he was able to find a cure thanks to a blood transfusion from Spider-Woman Jessica Drew. But the problem is, after everything he went through, well, he's no longer able to grow in size like he used to because his body cannot possibly handle that kind of strain. Now, while you have Black Panther learning more about Black Goliath, well, that is when you have T'Challa realize that, well, Wakanda is about to be attacked once again. Now, when it comes to Wakanda being attacked, they're being attacked by a certain group of characters. For me personally, I found just flat out ridiculous. And their names are the Censors. Now, each member of the team, their powers are based off a different sense that you use in the real world. So, for example, one member would have the power of sight, another one, the power of touch, sound, smell, taste, and last but not least, intuition. Now, at first, our heroes, they do struggle fighting against this team because a lot of times they're using their powers against an opponent whose sense could easily overcome our heroes' abilities. But once our heroes realize, hey, if his ability is sight, then why not try to attack another sense that he's not strong in, like smell or taste? But either way, once you do have our heroes being able to overcome the Censors, well, Black Panther realized that they were being used as a way to distract him, because one of the gatherers, technically a right-hand man to the High Evolutionary, was able to sneak into the Great Mound to get their hands on a good handful of vibranium and then head back over to the High Evolutionary. Now, Black Panther knows, okay, you know what, is already a lost cause, but he does realize there was a note that was left in the armor of one of the gatherers that came from Dr. Foster. In that note, it had a location for our heroes to go to. Now, that location is the newest base of the High Evolutionary in the Savage Land. Now, let's not forget, in the earlier parts of the Evolutionary War, we saw the X-Men being able to bring back the Savage Land after it was completely destroyed. And the reason why I'm bringing that up, because once you have the West Coast Avengers begin to head over to a location that was told to them by Dr. Foster's note, they realize the Savage Land is alive again, and they're kind of wondering how. Now, when it comes to our heroes arriving at the location that Dr. Foster told them to go to, all they find is a huge crater, and we're left to wonder what in the world happened here that left behind a huge crater. Now, luckily for us, there is a second story that really tells us what happened before our main West Coast Avengers had arrived at that crater. And so we have to focus on the three members that had left the team. That will be Tigra, also Moon Knight, and Mockingbird. Now, when they do arrive in the Savage Land, they are very surprised to see, because like I said earlier, they were told, really a lot of heroes were told, that the Savage Land was no longer around, except now it's back again. Now, when the three heroes do arrive in the Savage Land, they are confronted by Kazar. Now, Kazar, he is literally a native of the Savage Land. He's been there for a very long time, but either way, you do have our, I want to call members of the Avengers, go over to Kazar asking, what in the world happened here? We were told the Savage Land was no longer around, and guess what? here it is. And he explains what happened in the previous chapters, but either way, he does say it also came back because of the High Evolutionary, and his base is over there. Now, when it comes to our heroes, they never heard of the High Evolutionary. And so they're kind of wondering, what kind of person is he? Is he a good guy or a bad guy? And so you have our heroes say the goodbyes to Kazar and his wife and his new baby to head straight over to the base of the High Evolutionary. Now, at first, when they do arrive, everything does seem to be normal. When they walk into the base, they are actually given a tour of the actual facility that belongs to the High Evolutionary. Now, while walking around, you see Dr. Foster, and he does see some members of the Avengers, except these are one, the Avengers who left the main team, and two, these three members have no idea, one, that Dr. Foster is there, but two, they don't even know who he is. And so he's kind of wondering, okay, are they here to save me? Now, like I said, at first, they're kind of believing everything is somewhat normal. As they're walking around, they're kind of like, okay, very nice facility, high-tech stuff, okay, we're good. But until they meet the High Evolutionary. Now, when they meet him, he tells them, hey, listen guys, straight up, this is what I am going to do. I am going to use a genetic bomb to advance the human race. Now, as soon as he said genetic bomb, these three members of the Avengers, they freak out. They're kind of like, no way, bro. We got to stop you right now before you were able to release that bomb. Now, here's the thing. He does release a gas to knock them out. Now, Moon Knight is able to continue to fight on for a few more minutes. And the only reason why, because his body is supposedly powered by the moon god Khonshu. But either way, once you do have Moon Knight pass out, you then have the High Evolutionary say, take every single one of them and put them inside my maze. Now, when it comes to the maze, it's really used as a way to actually test out people for the High Evolutionary. Now, when it comes to our members of the Avengers, each of them were assigned a robot to actually fight against. Now, all three heroes were able to take down the robots, but only Mockingbird was able to pass the test. Let me explain why. Because when it comes to Tigra and Moon Knight, after being able to take down their robots, well, their attention, their game plan is not to find the High Evolutionary, but to find each other. And I don't know why every single time I read a book that has Tigra inside of it, it's just her trying to get her rocks off. I mean, yes, I do know why she's like that, but it's like, can I get one book where she's not trying to get a guy? Either way, when it comes to Mockingbird, her main goal is to go after the High Evolutionary. And so that intrigues him very much, to the point where he wants to use her to test out his genetic bomb. Now, I'm going to skip over to the point where you have Mockingbird confront the High Evolutionary. Now, he does explain to her that he does find her very intriguing, to the point where he wants to use her for his genetic bomb. But when it comes to Mockingbird, she's not really down with that whole idea, and she tries her best to actually fight against him. Now, at first, she does struggle, and then it seems she might be able to take him down. But because when it comes to the High Evolutionary, almost every single part of his armor is so advanced with technology that he was able to grow in size and take her down very easily. Now, you have Dr. Foster walk into the room. Now, here's the thing. When he does, you have the High Evolutionary kind of wondering why in the world is a technician in his room trying to stop him from knocking out Mockingbird. And this is where you have Dr. Foster tell us that the only reason why he joined the High Evolutionary group is because he heard that he was working on something where it involves genetics. It was Dr. Foster hoping to regain his power, but once he does, if he does grow in size, his body can actually withstand the strain of his size being different than usual. And so we kind of find out that he was able to cook up some kind of serum that allowed him to get his powers back. And so we do see the return of Black Goliath being able to go toe-to-toe with the High Evolutionary. Now, their battle does not last that long for two reasons. One, when it comes to the High Evolutionary, he says, you know what? I kind of like what I'm seeing right now when it comes to different people of the human race. Because when he looks at Black Goliath, he's saying, you went out of your way to evolve yourself. And that right there is very key when it comes to the evolution of the human race. Now, the High Evolutionary, he does get a call saying, hey, listen, boss, we were able to get our hands on some vibranium. Now, when it comes to the High Evolutionary, this base is no longer safe at all for him to continue his work on his genetic bomb. And so he tells everyone, we're going to dip out and finish our project somewhere else. But this base right here is going to self-destruct. Now, when it comes to Goliath, he was able to get Mockingbird, Moon Knight, and Tigra out of the building and protect them from the explosion. So now we know where this crater actually came from. And this allows us to catch up to the present moment, where you have this group of Avengers leave to hopefully chase after the High Evolutionary. But right after they left, the other team we saw in the earlier parts of this video arrived just to find out there's some huge crater wondering where in the world it came from. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.